So before I go over the topic of today's video, I want to address something I talked about briefly in one of my videos that I released earlier in the last week or so, and that was the fact that I didn't complete my set review for Hour of Devastation. And like I say, I think I mentioned in my video before, and even probably in other videos before that one, my set reviews are geared to long-term play, long-term constructed play for things like Modern, Standard, and Frontier, and all the other long-term constructed events or decks that could either whether be competitive or casual. The thing I realized is that I think my set reviews or the videos that are made of them have probably the lowest amount of views on my channel, and it's kind of frustrating when you put a lot of work into something and you don't really get a lot of payout out of it or a lot of notification out of it. The reason this is, especially for this, is not just because I worked really hard on these. It's also because I've actually seen other set reviews. Before I had my own channel, I would actually watch set reviews on other channels. I won't say who, but other channels did have set reviews, and they would, well, basically do what I do. They go over the cards in the set and talk about how they're going to be relevant in the upcoming formats and if you should invest in them or not. Now, the one thing that really bothered me with these videos is they went over every single card, and I'm not against going over every single card. It's just I knew what a lot of these cards, well, did. I know what Grizzly Bears does. I know what Stormcrow does. The point is, I thought it was just completely pointless to go over a card that just I would never use, and honestly, I got so annoyed to the fact that I would just skip through that part and just go to what I wanted to see. And yeah, it really made a big deal for that matter. But anyway, I think the reason a lot of people did this was because a lot of people, well, draft. And honestly, I just continue to skip over these because I don't draft. Now, you might be thinking, Ryu, why do you hate draft? What's wrong with draft? Honestly, I don't hate draft. I just don't think it's a good way to really play Magic. The thing that really bothers me is that I think Wizards really wants people, specifically new players, to be introduced to Magic via draft, and I don't like that at all. And today I'm going to show you why I don't think new players should be drafting, at least not at the start, and why there are just better ways to play Magic in general. To start things off, I want to talk about my first ever time drafting, which happened about 4 or 5 months into my Magic the Gathering career, and it was arguably one of the worst experiences I ever had playing Magic. Granted, I was pretty new at the game, so I probably made some mistakes in picking the right cards, so to speak, but I wasn't so much what I picked, it was what I was playing with. The cards I was playing with just weren't exciting, they weren't good, and it just wasn't fun. So as I continued to draft and get better and better at the game, one thing I noticed was that drafts really didn't change a whole lot. The cards I played with weren't good, they weren't cards I really would want to play with again, and it just seemed like I just put a whole lot of money into some cards that I didn't really want to, I guess you could say, play with. And I felt like I could have spent my money on cards that were, well, just better. Like, for example, I could have spent my money on cards for Standard that for, like, instead of the $12 to $15 on draft, I could have spent, like, I don't know, $16 on a set of cards that I would have played up for, like, years in Standard and possibly even longer. But still, it just seems really weird. And one thing I think is just ridiculous is that after some drafts are over, a lot of players will just leave the cards that they don't want. I really feel like that's a terrible waste of money, considering you spent $12 to $15 on cards and you only took some of them and just, I guess you could say, left the rest for, I guess, other people who want jank cards to have, I guess. I don't know. I just really feel like I've always been about long-term play anyway. And another reason I don't really recommend draft is it's very limiting. And I guess there's always a bit of a fun and a challenge of trying to build a deck with janky cards and doing things that are using cards that you normally wouldn't use. But I really feel like it's just you could be spending your money on better things. So I guess in the shortest terms, Drafting can be often compared to a Magic the Gathering-like condom. You just use it once and then you're done. Now, there's a couple points I like to address with why you shouldn't draft, but in order to do it, I'm going to need a booster pack. Oh, hey, what's that over there? Okay, so I happen to have a booster pack here, and I'm going to open it up. Now, to be fair, I'm just having an Hour of Devastation pack with me at the moment. Drafts are various. You can draft, usually people draft with whatever sets you want, and honestly, I think the current draft is it's either 1 or 2 of Hour of Devastation and 1 of Amonkhet. At least that's, knowing Wizards, that's what they usually do when they have 2 sets of a block. So we're going to open this up and see what we get. Drafting, while you won't necessarily always get the cards that you want, you also will have to pick cards that you probably don't want due to basically a short-term scenario, which is building your deck for draft. And I never liked this just because, for one, it's either a lose-lose situation depending on what you pick. If you pick a card that's usually good for your deck, you will usually have to pick a card that's oftentimes not the best. But if you pick the rare, there's a couple of reasons with that, or the best card in the pack late in the draft, you will get a good card, but you necessarily won't have a very good deck. Of course, there are probably some scenarios where it can turn out more beneficial, but I feel like I come across this situation way too much whenever I draft. Next, I want to talk about something else, which has to do with the cards that you pick. But let's see what I have here. Firebrand Archer, the Camel, Disposal Mummy, Abuscade. There's a Blue Desert, the Gift of Strength, Crash Through, Manolith, Unsummon, Crypt of the Eternals, Razaketh's Right, Rotomap Ruins, and our rare is the Endless Sands. And so yeah, so usually you take out the land and the token when you draft. So right now, looking at all this stuff, there's some pretty powerful things. Now, honestly, I'm not crazy about the draft format. I probably would, considering removal is very popular, I'd probably take an Unsummon here, or if I want to go into green or black, I'd probably take the Right or Abuscade. Now, you can make some big stink about what card you want to pick. I mean, for me, I would pick the Unsummon, but honestly, I have lots of Unsummons. I don't need any more Unsummons. Frankly, I don't really see a whole lot of these cards seeing too much play in constructed Magic outside of EDH, but you never know, something could be broken. The deserts are nice. I know some there's a lot of synergy with deserts, but this is what I'm saying. The biggest issue I think here is you don't necessarily get cards. This is exactly what I'm saying about. You don't get cards that you really, really want, and that if you do get them and use them for your draft deck, you're basically just gonna use them once and then just give them away. Now, while I do like Endless Sands, I think Endless Sand is a pretty sweet land. And I think, honestly, all the deserts are pretty cool lands. I really don't know how effective deserts are in draft. And that's another problem with draft, is that cards that, it's kind of misleading for a lot of players, because you can get cards that are good in draft that are terrible constructed, and cards that are phenomenal and constructed and are terrible in draft. And I think the deserts here are kind of a prime example for that, because I love the deserts in this set, and I just really, really like the synergies that they have and all the great stuff that you can do. And you could probably build a draft deck for deserts, but you may or may not want to take that. You may just not make that decision right away. Now, the worst thing that I really dislike about draft is, since the pack is going to come back around to you, you'll probably have to deal with a bunch of worse cards that you will get, or you will see, when you get the pack again, and there likely won't be anything that too exciting. And that's what I've kind of, while playing draft myself, I've kind of always been kind of disappointed, because, like, well, here are all these lousy cards that are just almost complete jank. What am I going to do with them? Just like, I'm just going to use them this one time for this deck, and then likely will never use them again. So because of the limited selection, I mean, it is called limited for a matter, I don't really think it's really good for new players to really play draft. Just because, well, let's just face it, I think new players should be exposed to use whatever card that they want. And there are some things that can be a little frustrating about a big pool of cards. If anything, the biggest complaint I've had with playing Constructed is, well, what the hell to play? Because there's just so many cool cards. With draft, the selection is made out for you, and honestly, you really have to kind of get creative with draft. but I've never liked it just because it's very limiting, very restrictive, and the cards you get just really aren't playable outside of the format. Like I say, I really feel like Limited is really based more off the player. Some people have phenomenal experiences getting the stuff they need in their drafts. Some people just throw away their decks and just say, oh, here, have my cards. I don't need them. I just spent $15 for nothing. I guess just a brief game of Magic. So, yeah, I can say I've always tried to, I don't know, kind of force myself at times that draft can be fun, that I can get some good value out of a draft, but it never really happens. And that's why I don't recommend draft to new players or for veteran players as well. However, I'm not trying to discourage players from playing draft. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video and this rant about draft. If this is your first time ever watching a video at my channel, please like and subscribe, as it does help get this and my other videos about Magic the Gathering out there. Once again, my name is Respector, and I will see you all next time.